Welcome to this week's Gig Harbor Market Update. We're going to be talking about our big debt issue. And no, I don't mean about the debt ceiling for the government because they just print their own money anyway. I'm talking about the American debt, and that is owed by us on our credit cards. Stay tuned and you'll find out why it could potentially cause a recession. Let's start by looking at some headlines. Here I'm going to switch the screen over, and there we are. This one's by Fortune, and it says, "Back to broke, Americans are racking up the debt and burning through the savings. Economists warn it could spark a recession." And let's just go to the big point here made in the article that over 80% of middle-income households cut down on their savings or pulled money from existing savings to make ends meet in the last 3 months of 2022. Let's go look at some data down here. This is Americans are turning to credit amid rising prices. And here we see total US credit card debt in billions over the past decade. And here we see just this right here is when everybody got their COVID checks and essentially were forced to not spend money because nobody could go to the restaurants or go on vacation or anything. So it was kind of a forced savings event here. But we've caught up pretty quickly to this trend line here, and we're almost at the $1 trillion mark. I think between Q1, 2, 3. So between Q2 and Q3, we went up by 6.6% in just one quarter. So if we go up another 6%, we're going to be over the $1 trillion mark. And that's just credit card debt. So of this almost $1 trillion of unpaid credit card balances, by dividing this number by the number of people who have credit cards, on average, a credit card holder has $5,805 worth of unpaid balances that they have to pay off. So if an average credit card has an APR of, let's say, 21.6%, that represents $1,200 a year that you're just paying on interest alone. That's not even going towards paying the balance off, that's just interest payments. Now, on top of the interest paid on a credit card, there's also late payment fees. So if you are late paying your balance off, the White House is actually reducing or capping the amount of late payment penalties credit cards can charge. So it used to be up to $41 per late payment, and if you have a $40 credit card that's unpaid, then you're essentially doubling the amount of money you have to pay for the credit card. So that's ridiculous. So at least they're reducing it to $8. So that's going to be a big change. And these late payments are a huge cash cow for credit cards. And according to this article, capping the fee at $8 would reduce late fees by as much as $9 billion per year. Wow, that's incredible. On top of unpaid credit cards, we also have to look at the amount of debt Americans have on their cars. And let's take a look at the car loans here. I'm going to pull up another article. Auto loan debt reaches a record high of $1.43 trillion. So that's more than credit cards. And here it shows that the average auto loan balance unpaid here is $20,987. So that's on top of the $5,800 on average that a credit card holder has. So we're looking at almost, there's people probably $30,000 in debt on just their credit card and car alone. The amount of auto debt has skyrocketed because it turns out dealerships make more money selling auto loans than they do on selling their cars. And that's why they've recently pushed such a high amount of focus on their financial department and trying to get people to finance their cars as much as possible and not pay cash outright for them. Unlike the mortgage and even the payday loan industry, the auto loans are really an unregulated field. In fact, there's no federal regulations on them at all. This allows dealerships or lenders to essentially issue loans to people that can't pay them back, at the detriment to their customer, but as a benefit to the dealership. And let's see. And according to this 2021 study, they found that between 25 and 50% of loans were given to customers who may not be able to afford them. Wow. Experts suggest that consumers should not spend 10% of their income towards an auto loan. So we have something similar in the mortgage industry, which was like 36%. So cars 10%. But it says that lenders rarely verify income and employment of borrowers, with only 4% of verification occurring. And consequently, almost 10% of subprime loans are now 30 or more days delinquent. And if you don't pay off your car loan, it really hits your credit card score. So that makes buying anything on credit or qualifying for anything else in the future a lot more difficult. that leads me into my next point, good debt versus bad debt. And yes, there's such a thing as good debt, unlike what Dave Ramsey preaches. Let's start by looking at car loans. Unlike the 2008 financial crisis, which essentially was a foreclosure crisis, people won't become homeless, or they're not going to have their entire lives shattered because their car got foreclosed upon. As long as they have a house, I think they can really get back on their feet, and they kind of have their lives together, and they just buy a cheaper car. Let's take a look at this article here, and it reads, household debt skyrockets to highest level since 2008 financial crisis. The average household owed a total of $142,860 at the end of 2022. Now, the good news about this, and it doesn't really come across in the article headline, is that the majority of this debt is in fact in a mortgage, and a low rate, fixed rate mortgage at that. So, this debt becomes less valuable over time because as the value of the dollar decreases, that mortgage burden becomes less over time. So in 30 years, that $142,000, assuming it's not paid off, that will become a lot less in the term of debt burden. Okay, now for the bad news, and it comes from the Fed here, and this is a chart showing the personal saving rate, and currently, 2022 December, it shows that we have a savings rate of 3.4%, and that means 3.4% of a person's income goes towards their savings. And this is, I don't think it's an all-time low. I mean, the all-time low is here 2.4%, but we don't have such low rates, and looking back until 2006, and that wasn't a very economical, stable time either. And this low amount should not come to a surprise. I mean, of course we have rising prices, but also for the fact that 65% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And what's interesting is that even people making six figures are living paycheck to paycheck. Here we have an article saying that more than half of Americans who make $100,000 say they live paycheck to paycheck. And here it says the effects of inflation are eating into every American's wallet. Look at no money. The article does point out that $100,000 in San Francisco won't get you as much as Boise, and interestingly enough, it shows from Pew Research that, in the case of San Francisco, that middle class income ranges from $77,000 to $232,000. So if you're earning $232,000 in San Francisco, you're considered middle income. Versus here it says Fort Lauderdale is between $43,000 and $128,000. So of course, that is a big difference. But also, I'd like to look at what is now middle class. And since the 1970s, here's what is considered upper income. In the 70s was $130,000, and it is now $219,000, but this is 2020 data. Middle income has increased from essentially $60,000 in the 70s to now $90,000 in the 2020s. So just something to consider. So what do these articles and these statistics really mean for me and you on a personal level? I mean, why do I care if somebody has a car loan or a lot of credit card debt? Well, one concern is that with such high levels of debt and reduced savings is that this can lead to a decrease in spending. And when consumers don't spend, this can have negative effects on the economy. In other words, people are essentially busy paying off debt, and their low savings rate means that they can't spend money on things such as goods and services, which will then slow down the economic activity. And that gets me to the next point, and that is the personal debt bubble. I want to go quickly back to that Fortune article we looked at earlier and read a quote from it. And here we go. I'll pull it up here. Let's zoom in. Here it says, Americans' ailing savings accounts and decreased reliance on credit cards is likely to cause consumer spending, which represents 70% of US GDP, to slow this year. And with this leading economic indicator like manufacturing orders and credit conditions deteriorating as well, some economists like Admin, I'm not even going to pretend to say this name, Senior Director of Economics at the Conference Board, a nonprofit research organization, believe a recession is inevitable. It goes on to read, indicators related to the labor market, including employment and personal income, remain robust so far. Nonetheless, the Conference Board still expects high inflation, rising interest rates, and a contracting consumer spending to tip the U.S. economy into recession in 2023. What the Fortune article really doesn't talk about is the velocity of money and how reduced spending impacts the velocity of money. And ironically enough, having a savings rate that's too high can also reduce the velocity of money. Well, let's start, first of all, what is velocity of money? The velocity of money is really the speed at which money changes hands in an economy. So when people spend money, it often goes to another person or business. So like you buy a hot dog and that hot dog vendor then goes and spends money that you gave him on stuff he needs. And he goes to Home Depot, and then of course that goes to the shareholders, who then get that money back, and then they continue to spend it, hopefully. So basically what I'm trying to say is when people spend money, it goes to another person or a business, and then they spend that, and this creates the cycle of economic activity. So when people stop spending their money, or it just doesn't travel that far anymore, this can be known as a reduction in the velocity of money. The Fed actually tracks the velocity of money, and I'll pull that up here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. So this is the velocity of M2 money stock. This basically shows how much velocity money has. And we got a pretty high number here in 2007, but we've been declining really ever since. And as you can see, during recession, plummets, right? This was our plummet. This was our micro recession, I guess, in 2020. And it is coming back, and contrary to what the Fed wants, is they don't want to see this right now. They want to, the reports have been too good. The economy doesn't seem to be flinching as much as it should be according to the Fed. And as this keeps going up, they're going to keep raising their interest rates up. So I expect this number to decrease again here sometime in the future. What I'm really trying to say here is that consumer spending is a significant driver of economic activity. And when people are paying off interest, which is not really contributing to economic activity, or they're putting too much money into their savings account because times are tough and they're saving for a rainy day, this reduces spending. So both people saving or not having enough savings reduces spending, and so they don't spend money on goods and services. This in turn reduces demand, which causes businesses to reduce production, they can lay off workers, and they cut back on investments. So all of these can further slow down economic activity and creating a negative feedback loop. And that's when the Fed then goes ahead and then decreases interest rates to essentially inject more money to the system, cheap money, to start getting that economic fire driving again. Whew, that was quite a lot. Thank you for hanging in there. Hopefully you learned something a little bit here, and then we're going to now transition into looking at the Gig Harbor real estate market. Yay! If not, I'll wish you a pleasant week. Till next time. Okay, now for some Zillow action here. Let's go to Gig Harbor. And then of course we're going to reset all the filters to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. And remove boundary because we want to include Fox Island. Sorry if I missed your house. Alright. Okay. Apply. And we're gonna do not new construction. And we'll get to that pending later. Home type, we want to do just houses. And then we want to do 7 days. So we're gonna look what's happened in the past week. So that's how I set up my Zillow. So we have a total of 12 listings, and those are currently active listings that have been on the market for 7 days or less, and we can see how many have gone pending. So 5 have gone pending. So if I don't know if it's sourced by pending, but we can see that a good amount have. So houses are still being snatched up in under a week, which is a great sign. But of course, there's not a lot of houses to choose from, so that's also probably contributing to that. Okay, besides that, let's just not look at what's under pending. Let's just look what's still on the market. And we're going to do high to low. We're going to start with this home. It looks like north of Canterwood, a little up on Peacock Hill. Probably a little too far for 1.55, but we'll see. Maybe somebody really loves this home. 4-bed, 4-bath. 3,900 square feet, built in 2014. Just looking at it real quick. They could have done better pictures. It's agent cut corners. Ay. These are some bad pictures. Bad lighting. Everything's orange, dingy, dirty. Sorry, homeowner. I wish you had I don't know what happened. Anyway, it looks like a great house. Looks a little expensive for 1.55 though. I'd say this is, it's a pretty big home. So, but it's not new construction. It's not like it's being built though. I think it's a little too much money for this home. Okay, now we're zooming back up. What would I think it's worth? Maybe 1.2, maybe less. Well, 1.26 acres. I don't know. it seems a little high. All right, what else we got? We're gonna do our median house, which the median price in Gig Harbor is what, $735. So this one right here is probably the closest to that. $770, 3-bed, 2-bath. It's a little expensive. Okay, 1,700 square feet. Let's say it. 1.7. This is why it's hard to look for acreage, because you might end up with something like this. This is quite common here in the Northwest. Is a shotgun lot essentially. So you have you think you have space between your neighbors, but you don't really, because this is 1.9 acres, but it's not quite a flag or a rectangle site. It is a rectangle. So this is a very elongated rectangle. Wow, look at that yard to mow. An HDR sky. Oh, I never took these photos. I don't like it. Too much HDR. Turn it down, boy. Okay. And I say that lovingly. Well, it's close to Gig Harbor, so that's probably why they jacked up the price. But if that was out somewhere else, it'd be definitely a lot cheaper. Because 3-bed, 2-bath for $770, and I don't know. Maybe it justifies it. Maybe someone will really like the location. Okay, now for our cheapest house on the market, we go to. If you want to buy a house this week, the cheapest house on the market, and you want to live in Gig Harbor, you're looking at $625, 3-bed, 2-bath. Yeah, this is more in line with what I'm expecting, but this is an older home, of course. 1,200 square feet. That's a lot of money per square foot for an over 1983 house. Now let's see what they have. I got a car park, car park, a garage. Okay, so plenty of room for stuff. Updated quartz. Okay, yeah, it's nicely updated. I think it's worth it. The deck looks fine. Looks like it needs to be sanded and stained. But yeah, nice little lot. Where is it located? Artendale. Oh, this is a great location if your kids go to Artendale. You just cross the road and you're right at school. Cool. Well, this is a great location for somebody who's just starting out and has some kids. But of course, we can't say that as real estate agents. It's a house for everybody, regardless of family size. And what's on the Fox Island for $675? That's a lot of garage. Somebody wants garage. Wow, this is quite the house for them. See, this is much better photography. Look how bright it looks. Everything, even though you have a small window, but the rooms still look bright and inviting. Yeah, whoever did these photos was much better than that first listing or second listing. Yeah, a great house. Somebody that needs a lot of storage for their vehicles or whatnot, and 1.32 acres. So this is probably better acreage, just looking by the layout of the, where's the map? Oh, I'll just zoom in. Sorry, last thing, and then we can get on our merry way. It is on the main road. Let's see. Yeah, that's a nice shaped lot. See, this is better, the proportion of the lot. Looks like all your neighbors are in that range too, so you're not buying the most expensive house, which is good. You never want to buy the most expensive house in a cheap neighborhood. You always want to buy the cheapest house in the expensive neighborhood. Yeah, it's decently priced, decently sized, living on Fox Island. So that's what's on the market. Hope you liked it, and well, we'll tune in next time. Take care.